Twin sisters separated since birth or reunited by happenstance. Their families split by divorce. The two scheme to reunite their estranged parents. Switching places to save the family. What could go wrong? All of this can mean only one thing. We're comparing The Parent Trap on this episode of Retro versus Remake. Reggie Parker.
And I'm Dan Bulick. Welcome to another episode of Retro versus Remake. I could do that in person now. This is the series where we compare movies and the remakes. Join us as we answer the question, should the remake exist? Today's films are The Parent Trap.
The Parent Trap, 1961. Starring Haley Mills, Brian Keith, Maureen O'Hara, Joanna Barnes, Charlie Ruggles, Kathleen Nesbitt, Una Merkel, Leo G. Carroll, Linda Watkins, Ruth McDevitt, Crahan Denton, and Nancy Culp. Directed by David Swift, screenplay by David Swift, and the screenplay is based upon a 1949 book. In German, it's Das Doppelt Lachen by Eric Kastner. In English, they just call it Lottie and Lisa. And the music is by Richard and Robert Sherman, a brother duo.
Nice.
The Parent Trap 1998, starring Lindsay Lohan, Dennis Quaid, Natasha Richardson, Elaine Hendricks, Lisa Ann Walter, Simon Coons, Polly Holliday, Maggie Wheeler, Ronnie Stevens, Joanna Barnes, and J. Patrick McCormick. Directed by Nancy Myers, and this screenplay is by Nancy Myers and was co-written by Charles Shire. The music by Alan Silvestri.
The screenplay was written by Nancy Myers, who directed it, and her husband, who was the producer, was Charles Shire. It's interesting that they worked on the movie together about husband and wife who were divorced getting reunited,
right.
And then a year later they would get divorced themselves.
Well, ain't that something?
I just thought that was an interesting little tidbit there.
The original would have a cool song about that. All right. So, Dan, what's your first experience with this film?
Good question, Reggie. My first experience is for this podcast. I had no idea what these films were, as exemplified by my text to you while I was watching what I thought we were watching for this episode. I was watching Freaky Friday going, oh man, this is great. Which one are we watching? Because there's three, and you're like, well, we're doing The Parent Trap. Oh, crap. What is that?
which is funny, because I texted you earlier in the week. I was like, which movie are we watching?
So yeah, I'd never seen either film. I think I remember hearing about the remake when it came out. Lindsay Lohan's first role, so but I'd never seen it until this podcast.
A role that she got over like Scarlett Johansson and a few other actresses. So I have a little bit more experience with these films. Well, with the remake. So last year, or maybe 2 years ago, I did a comedy show where we were supposed to pitch movie ideas or something like that, and I pitched The Parent Trap House. So I had to watch The Parent Trap, which was probably the first time I really watched that movie, because I was never a young girl. It never really appealed to me. So that was interesting. So I have some experience there, breaking this film down. And the original, didn't even know it existed. This is the first time hearing about it, really. So.
All right.
So since we didn't have a lot of experience, maybe you have. Either way, we're going to break down the synopsis. So, identical twins, separated at birth, and each raised by one of their biological parents. I don't know why. Later discover each other for the first time at summer camp. When the twins first meet, they have no idea they are related and form a mutual disdain for one another. They begin to pull a series of pranks on each other, and after one prank goes too far, the two girls are isolated together for the remainder of camp as punishment. In isolation, they realize that they are in fact related and hatch a plan to switch places in order to meet the parent they have never met and eventually reunite them. The parents. The switch goes well at first, but the girls hit a snag when they discover their father has a new girlfriend to whom he intends to propose. This revelation leads the twins to end their charade a bit early to have their parents meet to switch them back. The twins plan a romantic dinner to get their parents back together, but that doesn't go as planned. In a last-ditch effort, the girls dress alike so their parents are unable to tell them apart. They will reveal their identities only after returning from a planned family camping trip. Their mother lets the new fiancé go on the camping trip in her place, and during the trip the girls play several pranks on the fiancé. In frustration, the fiancée reveals her true colors, and the twins' father decides to call off the wedding. Each film ends its own respective way as the twins' parents rekindle their relationship. You'll notice in that synopsis that I couldn't use anybody's name.
Yeah.
Not one person in the entire film.
Yeah, the plots are so similar, but for some reason they decided to change everybody's name. The two twins are renamed after, like I said, the director and the producer's kids.
Wow.
So that's cool, I guess.
Yeah,
but like, there would have been, there's nothing wrong with Susan and Sharon either.
Yeah, that could have worked. Weirdly enough, that's probably one of the few name changes I actually like the Allie Hallie thing. I kind of like that. But it's pretty much Susan and Sharon as well. There's no difference.
It doesn't really matter.
It's the Lohan. So, given that, names don't necessarily matter. I think what really comes down to the character descriptions. And you can't talk about these two films without talking about our lead. Playing against our lead, the twins in this film. Okay. In the 1961 film, we have Haley Mills, who plays Sharon McKendrick, and Susan Evers.
What are you doing with her picture? It's my mother. But it's my mother, too.
And in the remake, we have Lindsay Lohan as Hallie Parker and Annie James.
You and I are like sisters. Hallie, we're like twins.
So, let me see. Teenage girls, right? Almost teenage girls. In the original film, Hallie Mills, I would say the one kind of early distinction is that she's a little bit older. She plays 14 in the movie. Yeah. Doesn't factor in too much in that regard. And I would say one of the other big changes is that one of them is from Boston, the other one's from California, versus Lindsay Lohan's character, where one is from England,
right,
and it's quite British, and the other one's from California still.
Yeah. So I'll give it to the remake. It makes, because she has a British accent in the original, and it doesn't really make sense when you have a British accent coming from Boston.
Yeah.
So I was a little confused about that,
right.
And I'm like, her mom doesn't really have a British accent. It's like, maybe the grandma, kind of.
Maybe.
Yeah, so it was just a little confusing that she had the most British accent among, all the people in her family. Not knocking her performance. It's a good performance she gives, but it's just, why do you have a British accent if you're from Boston?
It's strange. You would expect more like a Boston accent, especially in the 60s. I would just imagine that that Boston accent's got to be pretty harsh in that time frame, and No, she does have a similar effect. So, I didn't expect her to be from Boston because I watched the remake first, right. And she had that that effect still as if she were from a more formal upbringing. So
that's kind of what I'm chalking it up to. It's her education. Maybe they just teach her to speak a different way from all that money and stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of I guess in a certain sense I could see that dichotomy, because although Boston, I wouldn't necessarily put it in there a Connecticut or something like that, but there's college towns out there.
Yeah,
Harvard,
exactly.
So maybe she's got this formal upbringing that's implemented. And I could see California still being kind of loose and new wave. So that fits. But to your point, I think England with the accent, it works a lot better.
But I will say this, because I had never seen either film before, I knew Lindsay Lohan, there's only one Lindsay Lohan, I did not know that Hallie Mills was the only one playing both twins. Yeah. I was shocked. I was kind of is it just the same girl, or is it two separate girls? I did question it sometimes, because sometimes you can tell the film looks a little grainy when when you see both their faces at the same time. But for the most part, I was unsure. And then when I finally went on Wikipedia after watching the film, I was shocked that a movie made in 1961 and having the effect of the same person play twins just looks flawless today.
Pretty clean.
It's clean. It's as clean as it can be. It looks great, and there are other effects in the movie. There's a lot of rear screen projections that look terrible.
Yeah. But
the effect of having the two girls, or the one girl play both of them, it's it's flawless, and it really holds up well. Excellent use of stand-ins.
Yeah.
The way they covered the stand-in's face when they had both of them, it was great, and it still holds up today. So just kudos to the original film, because I couldn't believe it was the same girl.
Yeah, I got a little lost in, like, because I looked at the IMDb before I looked at the wiki, and I was like, oh, maybe someone else is playing it.
Right.
I was like, okay, they got two similar looking actresses, because it was that good. I was like, this looks like.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, I didn't expect the tech to match the way it did, and it was really impressive.
Right.
And, you know, I think the remake takes a lot of cues from that when it comes to stand-ins and stuff like that. But I would say that if you're looking at the technical aspect of it, besides some of the rear screen projection in the park and that underwater scene, a little goofy. But no, if you look at it, it holds up. I mean, I would put both these films against each other in that technical aspect.
Yeah, it's really incredible, especially because you have the cheesy rear screen projection and the underwater scene where it looks so fake and like it did not age well at all.
No.
But like having the girl play the twins, like holds up incredibly well, better than some effects today for having the same person play two people.
Yeah, I'll say that the weakest part is the wig. That wig is a little odd, but you know, at the end of the day, it works. Like you can tell the two apart very easily. That visual comes across really well. You know, I mean, like you said, kudos. I got nothing but praise for how they pulled off that technical feat.
Yeah. I guess going to their personalities, there's not much I can really think that makes the remake stand out or the original stand out too much. There's small like traits or hobbies that they have, like in the original. One of the girls, I think it's Sharon's, really good at piano.
Yeah.
She plays piano a couple times. And in the remake, Lindsay Lohan, both of them like poker.
Yeah.
That was like so important. Like, oh, I can't wait to play poker here. And then the other girl's like, oh, does anybody know how to play poker? And then they finally play poker. And I'm like, man, poker's gonna play a heavy part.
Yeah.
This is gonna be like fucking Rounders.
Yeah, Rounders, Casino Royale. I'm like,
and then there's no poker after that. So I was like, wait, there was such emphasis on poker in the beginning of the film. I thought for sure it would come and play.
Yeah, like they played the fiance in a high stakes.
That's what I'm saying. You get to marry our dad if you lose at this game of poker.
No, they just wanted like. I think they worked that around that royal flush line. I think that's really.
I guess so.
I thought that was fun though. Like I'll say that the pranks in the remake and their general attitude is more fun. I think it's kind of a sign of the times. Like you have like a '90s film versus like a '60s film where there are a lot of expectations for how young women should behave, how they should come across. We get actual interactions with like boys in the original, which is a fun change. One of the characters doesn't really get to interact because she's in trouble. Right. But I thought that was a good element in that they played off of when we get to the mother character, like the mother being concerned about her interaction with boys. I thought that stuff was good, and that was a distinction. But the remake really plays into, like you mentioned, the poker scene, which is a lot of fun. When they're fencing, like that's a lot of fun. Like the remake does action with these girls in a more kind of like, they're pranking each other, but it doesn't feel as like malicious.
Right. Exactly.
Like in the original, it feels like these two really hate each other.
Yeah. It really is vicious what they do to each other in the original film. I mean, even though they both kind of do that kind of gopher trap thing, and it's a lot more elaborate and a lot more Home Alone-y in the remake. Which, you know, me, if you try to introduce Home Alone in these remakes, I don't like it. Right. And but it's like it still feels like more malicious because of the consequences of what it does in the original film.
That's fair.
Because now she can't go to the dance. None of those girls can go to the dance, and that's like the only time they're going to see boys over the summer. So it's like not only are they embarrassed in their cabin's room, but now they can't go to the dance.
Yeah.
So a lot more malicious in that original film.
I mean, like, you know, as you're saying that, I'm thinking about even further. Like after that prank, the retaliation is to cut the dress. Yeah. And it ends in a brawl, like a literal brawl.
Yeah. The girls just smack each other. Like, there's a lot of smacking of these girls in this original film. Yeah. That's pretty intense. Yeah, then they just start fighting.
They get it from their mom. We'll talk about that.
Then they just start fighting. They ruin the music because the only record player gets destroyed.
Yeah.
And then they knock into the food table, and then that gets destroyed. So
Yeah.
all the music, all the food is just completely destroyed. They ruin the whole dance. So yeah, their rivalry has consequences beyond just the two
Yes.
of them that affects everybody in
Yeah.
camp. As opposed to the remake where they just, the two of them, yeah, they butt heads a lot, but it really just affects the camp counselor at the end of the day. Like they get caught in the crossfire, I guess.
I would say that like you get that '90s slapstick fun of like, okay, the counselor got what was it like
Home Alone. They're getting Home Alone.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
chocolate or something on her head and talk like feathers and stuff. So like, yes, there is that like violence, but like you said, like '90s violence is humor,
Right.
right? Like you mentioned Home Alone. So like hitting the guy in the head with a paint can isn't played to like horror. It's played to
Because it's not played realistic at all.
right. So the original plays it very realistic with this stuff. There's nothing funny about that fight. I guess the funniest thing would be the cake falls on someone's head.
And then the punch.
Yeah, that was
Einstein
pretty
saves the
funny.
punch bowl. He's like, I got it. And then the punch just goes in his face. Like, okay, that was pointless.
Yeah. So like, yeah, those moments are humorous, but like, I don't know. It doesn't feel like these two are going to get along
Exactly,
at any
yeah.
point. So the turn is more pronounced, but I still think that the remake has the benefit of just playing that scene more comedically. The introduction to the parents, finding out that they're related, felt a little more organic in the remake. Like instead of just a random photo, it's a photo split in half. Yeah, a little cliche and tropey, but like, okay, you got one half of a photo, I got one half of a photo. First, like, where'd you get that picture of my mom? So I just have this picture. That's a big difference, though. That like the one that has never seen the mother has a photo of her mother, at least, I guess. Mm-hmm. Which kind of then, now that I'm thinking about it, like, never asked questions about. I guess she has a sister, you know. So
Yeah, exactly. They make these small changes in the remake, and it does make you ask a few questions that you wouldn't be asking because they just tweak things here and there. Yeah, it is a little bit weird, I guess, that she's just going to hold up this photo and just never ask her dad.
yeah.
Because
Like,
in the original, it was like, I saw a photo, but then it disappeared, so she never actually had it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I'll say though, like the remake handled it pretty well because like you just had the split. But I don't know. I think that the general setup of both films is problematic. I mean, like,
Yeah.
it's a confusing scenario for me. I don't know if it is for you to have like, we got a divorce, but I'm gonna take one kid. You're gonna take the other. Like, would you pick your favorite kid? Like, it's a fun movie scenario. It just seems so strange
Yeah.
to do.
It's horrible parenting.
Yeah.
Is what it is. I mean, it is sweet when they're all reunited in both films, but then it's like, well, why did you even allow that to happen in the first place?
Yeah, 11 years to like have this moment. 14 years for some people.
Sure. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think that the other major difference between the characters, they both do talk about, like you mentioned, their different hobbies, and one bites her nails and stuff like that. I think this screen time that we get with Lindsay Lohan is sort of more the modern acting. We get a better feel for like her personality, but like I think that's just really they introduce more scenarios for them to kind of interact with people where the personality matters, versus like in the original. There doesn't seem to be that big of a distinction between who they are, so it's just like they're just having conversations that aren't always built around, hey, wait a minute, you're using the wrong words and stuff like that. I don't know. It feels like there's less of that in the original.
I could see that. I mean, I didn't really mind it too much. I don't really think they did much more in the remake to really distinguish the two girls. I mean, just having the British accent more pronounced in the remake,
That's probably what it
I
is.
think was just made it more obvious that they were, okay, you have a British accent because you're from England, as opposed to you have a British accent because you're from Boston. I'm confused.
Yeah. I think that point you're making is probably where I'm coming from, is that the difference is so much more obvious and apparent that like I think it feels like they're playing into it more. But you're right, overall it's kind of the same, but is more plausible.
It could be more of a cultural thing too, because you got someone who's American versus someone who's British. So just that background coming in.
Yeah. Although we miss that Comte aunt.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good scene, especially like in the original when she's leaving the camp.
Yeah.
I can't wait to go tell my aunt. Yeah, and then the counselor's like, "What the hell are you talking about?" That was a good little scene.
That's fun. Yeah, I think if we had to break it down, it's probably more of just the writing and the scenario. I have a slight preference for Lindsay Lohan's take. I think it's because of the fun, playful banter that they have versus the more like malicious fighting stuff. Look, the fencing scene's a lot of fun. The poker scene's a lot of fun. There's all these fun moments that you have with them. You're kind of invested in their story. You're ready to go on this journey with them. The original, it's kind of, it's a build-up because at the beginning there's so much animosity. So I have a slight preference for the remake, but I think every actor involved, whether it's the original or remake, did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, everybody did a great job. I'm actually just going to go with the original because, like I said, I didn't know it was the same actress. So, and the way they were able to pull that off. And plus, the performances aren't that different, so I'm just going to give it to the original there. And I do like that it's a little more malicious, so it is a little more satisfying when they finally come together.
That's fair.
I actually like that because it's just more conflict, so the resolution is just more satisfying for me. So I'm going to give it to the Haley Mills.
Okay. We're on a split here, but I'd say the thinnest of margins, I got it for Lohan, but maybe it's just a more modern person that I actually know. So I think that could be weighing my decision. Moving out of the twins, because I think we'll get more into them as we build out these characters. I felt like the most important character after that would be the mothers in both films. I would say they have probably the most screen time outside of the twins. In the original film, we've got Maureen O'Hara as Margaret Maggie McKendrick.
Are you sure she's Sharon? Of course she is. Aren't you?
And in the remake, we have Natasha Richardson as Elizabeth Liz James.
Why the sudden curiosity about your dad, huh?
Mother, you can't avoid the subject forever. At least tell me what he was like.
Maureen O'Hara returning from our Miracle on 34th Street.
Oh, wow.
So,
yeah. She's great. It's fun. In the remake, we'll start there because Liz, her career matters a little bit more. Again, not that any of this ultimately makes any real difference, but I thought it was interesting to make Liz like a famous wedding gown designer. She's known by other characters that we'll talk about outside of, like, people know who she is. So, not a huge difference, but interesting backstory. We get to play in some scenes with her kind of at her career and stuff like that, versus in the original with the Maggie McKendrick character. It doesn't really seem like she works necessarily. She volunteers at like the Red Cross. She seems like a socialite and stuff like that. So she does fit that kind of standard 60s, though she's not a housewife at the moment, kind of like housewife, like her career is her volunteer work and some of the other stuff that she does. Again, ultimately not consequential, but I thought it was interesting to note that modernization by making the mom's career a little more prevalent.
Yeah, they gave Liz the job of the wedding dress. I guess it gives her a little bit more background, but yeah, like you said, it doesn't really affect the story. It kind of like seems like it might, because when she meets the fiance, it's like, whoa, okay, she's actually gonna make the dress for her. It's kind of mentioned, but then as soon as her true identity is revealed, it's kind of dropped and we don't really hear about it. So it is sort of inconsequential. And I will just say this too, because they get married at the end. Spoilers. Her wedding dress is pretty bland for this famous world-renowned wedding dress designer. It's like, that's your wedding dress? I thought having something a little more elaborate. I know it's your second marriage to the same guy, but come on here.
Yeah, let's step it up. I'll say this, that one of the major differences that I noted was Maureen O'Hara felt like she got to have a lot of fun in this role. Yep. When it first started, you kind of, like I mentioned, you got like the standard 60s housewife. She plays off her mother quite a bit in some of the early scenes where, there's expectations of how a woman should behave in that time. But I think that when we do get to see her interact with the father character, you see that there's more behind this person than meets the eye. Like, she literally, like, it was a weird ass punch, but she was like, she punches the father at one point. She's got a pretty sharp tongue. Like, some of the lines that she drops in the movie, I'm like, jeez, that's vicious.
Yeah, she really. Well, she starts out very unassuming, and she's a very loving and kind mother. And then when Susan meets her for the first time, it's a very nice warm scene. And then, you know, she's just kind of almost a typical mom at that point. But then, as soon as she gets to California, and especially when she meets Vicky, then she really comes alive, and she really like just dominates every scene that she's in.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, she really chews it up, and she is able to deliver lines so condescending that aren't necessarily condescending, but the way she says them, like she's like, "Oh, you're as cute as you can be," but the way she says it, it's just like it just feels like daggers, right? Yeah,
but she has lines that are not subtle at all. Like she's talking to father at one point, and I remember this line. She's like, "Yeah, why don't you go on with your child bride with her electric hips?" I was like, I don't know what that means, but the way she said it, I was like, Jesus, dude. But yeah, in those, I think that does fit that like 60s socialite mold though, where like the shade has to happen quietly. And like in those moments where like she can't just be like, fuck you, right? Yeah. So she's like, oh, you're cute. And she goes up to the mother at one point, it's like, nice to meet you. Yeah. It's just when she does, because there are moments like that in the remake, but when she does it, it just hits so much harder in that original movie. So man, it was fun watching her work.
Yeah, she was really enjoyable. Like she really like hits her stride when she gets to California and has to interact with Vicky. It's really great. You know, Natasha Richardson does a pretty solid job as well, but she never reaches the level that Maureen O'Hara really does. She does kind of get drunk, I guess.
Yeah,
she doesn't really drink, so she's a little drunk. That's about it. I don't really have much to say on that scene.
Yeah, I feel like that. That's the kind of the dichotomy between these two portrayals, right? That in the remake, she's so nervous about this meeting that she gets drunk, like you mentioned, for the first time. And like when she first meets him again, it's kind of like she's not on her best footing because she is drunk, and you know, sure, he still likes the way she looks, and you know, they have a nice enough conversation, ultimately making the drinking actually inconsequential. Right? But you know, I don't know, like Maureen O'Hara's character gets to do so much in this film. Even when she's interacting with the husband, is like she's reading him the riot act and stuff like that. Her ex, she just has so many good killer lines that just go right to the jugular. Made you feel like holy shit, and you get some good backstory too in the interaction with the ex-husband when he talks about her Irish temper, and it's like you get to see it. You get to see it. Not necessarily PC to say that anymore, but yeah, when she gets going, you know, maybe not everyone sees that about her, and maybe that's why the relationship broke off originally. When she gets going, dude. Like just fun, attractive woman, smart as all hell, but scary. And like I said, she's got a nice. It's weird, but she's got a nice right straight, dude. Yeah.
So at the end of the movie, when the fiance is tricked into going to the camping trip, I found it just a little bit more believable that Maureen O'Hara was able to kind of orchestrate that, as opposed to Liz, who's like, you're just so nice. I can't really see you like plotting and scheming that the way that Maggie would.
Yeah, Natasha Richardson is playing like you mentioned, almost like the typical loving mother the whole time. You see her getting nervous, like we mentioned with the drinking. So like, there's never a moment early on where she takes control of the situation. So when she kind of gives the wink and the nod about the camping trip, it does kind of come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
You know, it still works. Like the storyline works and you can follow it, but in comparison to the original, of course, Maureen O'Hara is like, because at that point they were all in together, right? Like the twins and the mom were on the same page in that film. They're like, this lady the fiance, this lady sucks. And the mom basically gives them tacit approval. Or just,
ruin her life.
Get rid of her, you know. That scene just hits so much harder. And the remake, like, you still get the same effect. Like you said, we hit the same beats overall. But the character work that we established early, the interactions that she has with the father in the original, it just, when you get to that moment, it makes so much more sense to your point. And it just... yeah, it's super believable. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think what we're getting at is that just Maureen O'Hara's character feels like the type of character that would do that camping trip,
right,
ploy, and I think it worked really well. But I mean, we really can't dive into the moms without the juxtaposition with the dad. So maybe that's the next place we go.
Definitely.
Taking us right into that, Brian Keith in our 1961 film plays Mitch Evers.
You didn't think it was going to change, did you? Becky!
And in the remake, we have Dennis Quaid as Nick Parker.
Well, what about your mother?
Dad, I'm almost 12. How long do you expect me to buy that story that the stork dropped me on your doorstep?
I'm gonna tell you this right now. I don't even know who's Brian Keith. Who is this man? What does he do? Why is he rich? He has a ranch. Is that it? That's seems to be his character trait.
Yeah, it's a little unknown why he has all this money. Mm-hmm. And he's a really big guy. he's a very big guy, and yeah, I don't know. It's a weird comparison. They're actually really different portrayals.
I would say so.
I'm actually going to start with Dennis Quaid because I think it's just a little bit easier to talk about him. Dennis Quaid, I guess, he just has like this warmth to him. He's a lot more loving.
I would agree.
Of the two fathers. Just the first time he sees his daughter that he hasn't seen for a long time, the first time he realizes who it really is, even the first time he sees his ex-wife,
right?
He's just like, I don't know, he's got that Dennis Quaid charm. There's a reason that guy's a star.
He's got that like smirking, like half smile thing. Just like, oh, Allie. Yeah, it's great.
It's really warm. You don't really get too much of that warmth from Brian Keith. He gives a little bit of it when he realizes who daughters, or he realizes that both girls are together, but he's more of kind of just like a comic foil almost in a way, because like there's a lot of jokes just on him, and
that's fair.
He's kind of just like the goofball.
He's a classic, like you mentioned. He's a big guy. He's a '60s square jaw guy. So by definition, interaction with his daughter are inherently awkward. Like there's no. It does not feel like, even when he's hanging out with the daughter that he thinks he's hanging out with, it doesn't seem like he's comfortable in that role as a dad, which kind of makes sense, you know, like a single dad in the 60s trying to raise a daughter by himself. Yeah, he probably did a horrible job. I just, like you mentioned, that warmth isn't there. Like, I find it more believable that this guy is like a playboy bachelor than Dennis Quaid, who seems to, how do you put it? Like, Dennis Quaid seems like he's kind of wrapped his life up in his job and his daughter. Mm-hmm. By definition, the original father, like, you can't be so concerned about your kid being a man in that time. So, like, Brian Keith he plays it well. It's just not. It's not warm. It's not loving. Yeah. So, you know, he's a man.
I will give it this though, like when the ex-wife is describing him, like, or someone's describing him. Oh, it's the maid who's describing him. It's like, you know, he's not really a charming guy. He can't really talk to women. It's just his money. So that's more believable with Brian Keith, because, like, I can believe this guy is really charming. Yeah. But, like, you got Dennis Quaid. He's Charm City, that guy. So it's like, that line doesn't exactly work when describing Dennis Quaid's character. Mm-hmm. So it's like, your dad's not charming. Are you kidding me? This guy? Yes, he is.
Yeah, it's just, I would say that's the biggest difference here, is that Dennis Quaid pulls off this likable character. Yeah. All around. You get why the daughter likes him. You get why the mom liked him at some point. And it feels more natural when they're having a conversation. It's like, what happened? And they really almost can't piece together why they broke up. You know, there's definitely elements of the breakup. It's like, well, you know, you asked me to leave, but you never came to get me. But I can see why Brian Keith and Maureen O'Hara broke up, because they're literally having a fight, like a literal fight at one point. Of course, Brian Keith's not throwing punches, but I mean, still, there's violence in that relationship. That's just not there with this Dennis Quaid character. So it's very easy to get on board with Team Quaid in this remake.
I will say this though, like, I know there's no like fighting physically or verbal fighting in the remake. I kind of missed that they didn't have that at all.
Yeah.
There was never a moment where the mom and dad like just like argued like at all. I mean, it wasn't. There was no argument. It was just like one part, she just got awkward and she didn't want the relationship, so she just stepped away. There was never any fighting. So it was like, yeah, why did these two not only divorce but decide to raise the children separately?
Right.
And then as opposed to like the original, it's like, oh, they fight all the time. Okay, these people shouldn't be together.
Right.
That's why they don't even want to share the kids, because then they'll have to deal with each other and it'll just end in another fight.
The extreme move of splitting up your twin daughters feels more plausible in the original, because they will fight. Like you mentioned, the Irish temper, the him just being kind of like the square jaw, aloof guy. That all makes sense. I do really like in the original when he, you know, because Maureen O'Hara's character has so much agency and is kind of like pulling the strings. When she's wearing like the housewife outfit and she's like, you know, like it felt very natural for him to be like, oh shit, you know, maybe this is who I should be with. But you know, it works. To your point though, in the original, it works because he's not charming. To have it be so jarring that this young woman who, I mean, she looks just as old as Maureen O'Hara. we'll get to that. But it is more jarring when this young woman wants to deal with him, because he has this gruff demeanor. There's not really a lot there. Versus Quaid, he's got a successful vineyard. He jokes around. Yeah, maybe he's not the most charming guy, but it doesn't feel like he's, you know, socially awkward or anything like that. So there's pros and cons, but I think overall Dennis Quaid just fits the space of a more likable character, like we talked about, and it's easier to get behind him.
Yeah. So I like Dennis Quaid's portrayal of the dad, but I guess if I had to pick the couple, I just find the original couple just more interesting.
Yeah.
Just because, like, even the ways they were able to just start the fights, like, they would start almost loving, and then they'd be really, like, complimentary to each other, and then it's just the way they turn. And, like, well, all of a sudden, Vicky, oh, now you gotta bring Vicky into this. Oh, don't you? So I just enjoyed their interactions more, just because there was more to do for the actors.
That's a great distinction. I think that on an individual basis, it's very easy to look at like Quaid and Richardson and say, on an individual basis, I like what they're doing. But as a believable couple that is divorced, that had all this strife in the past, oh yeah, the original, hands down. Again, I think the remake gets a lot of benefit from the writing, like them having their first date on the Queen Elizabeth. So it kind of makes sense how their relationship started in that remake. Like that part works really well. But just, you're right, the original, I don't know, like I just watched these two like get it, like I watched her belt him in the eyes. So it's like, yeah, I believe this like quick burning relationship. It's like the highs are high, the lows are super low, and it, because there's that range, it's a very believable couple for this implausible scenario.
Yeah.
First remake. Why they do that?
Exactly. There's just questions in the remake. You know, we're saying that Dennis Quaid's like this really loving and heartwarming guy, but then, so he is like, you know, we find out he is collecting all the wine bottles from their wedding, which are like impossible to find and like took him forever to find. So like, you know, it shows that he still loves her. So it does bring up the question, well, why didn't he like go after her? Like, why are they divorced? And also, if he's so loving, well, why did he met and got engaged to a woman like while his daughter was away for just a few weeks? it doesn't fit his character.
That's odd. Yeah.
Yeah, it fits more of Brian Keith because, like, oh yeah, that guy. Yeah, he would do something that's stupid. But, like, you figure, like, Dennis Quaid, you'd have more sense than that. Come on.
Right. I don't know, like, Brian Keith, we don't have a lot of background about his father character. Like I mentioned, we don't even really know what he does for work.
No.
But yes, the daughter's overplaying her hand by saying that, like, oh, he's got this revolving door of women, which is a kind of something that's described in both films. It's a joke, more or less. It's meant to get the fiance upset, but it's super believable that Brian Keith is a playboy. Like,
definitely,
super believable. Dennis Quaid, he feels more like a recluse, even with these charming personality traits. So, like, yeah, I believe that Brian Keith would date 26-year-old women in California. Like, he seems like the type of guy.
Yep.
Nothing necessarily wrong with that. Just, he feels like that guy. So, I think that the remake writes itself in a lot of good positions, but I think that fundamental confrontational relationship between the couple doesn't read as true. So and as a combined, like, aggregate, the original couple are overall better, even though I tend to like Dennis Quaid on an individual level more, but Maureen O'Hara is so strong, it actually pulls Brian Keith up, and it works really well.
Totally agree with that.
Yep.
Should we go on to the fiance who we've been mentioning?
Yeah, I think that we have to talk about the fiance in both of these films. So, our girlfriend/fiance character in the 1961 film, we have Joanna Barnes as Vicki Robinson.
Are you inferring that I'd marry your father for his money?
If the shoe fits, wear it.
And in the 98 film, we have Elaine Hendricks as Meredith Blake.
Everything all right? Well, no, actually, it isn't. I didn't realize that you were going on this little outing. And to tell you the truth, I'm not so sure that I'm okay with it.
So, Meredith Blake, to me, is a more fully formed character. We know that she has a job. She's a publicist, so her ability to be in the same vicinity as Dennis Quaid makes a little bit more sense. She's tied to his career, kind of in the sense that I'm doing a publicity piece for him. So it feels like a more natural relationship. She doesn't look that young, but she does look younger than the mother in this film. So, like, that kind of holds up. That original film, when I look at Joanna Barnes, I'm not seeing anything very, like, distinctive about her. Like, they're telling me she's younger than that guy,
right?
Which, I guess, like, everyone looks younger than that guy. But, like, we don't get a lot of who is she, like, what's her background. Where that gets substituted is we get a lot of the interactions with her mother, which helps to fill things out. But I don't know, Meredith Blake to me feels like a pretty good foil and a really good kind of villainous character to play against. Joanna Barnes, yes, and, like, no, like, I just don't. There's not much to her in the film.
I didn't really see much more with Meredith Blake, actually, honestly. I know she gets a job, and she has this kind of rogue gallery of characters around her that we never see again, like her publicist who shows up, or her partner. I don't know who that guy was. I thought it was going to be like a subplot, like she really loves that guy, and then she's just kind of like Tommy Boy, like this is really her lover, and she's going to marry the old man for his money, but, like, no, we don't see him again. And then we see, like, her parents very briefly, and then we don't see them again. So it's like I had a little bit trouble just, like, necessarily following her at times, because, like, the people around her just kept changing, and we never saw them consistently again. Yeah,
that, like, assistant guy that's in the golf cart was like,
I was like, oh, they're gonna be together plotting, and then he's never there again. So I was like, oh, okay.
He was there to cackle once.
Yeah, just to kind of show that she's evil, so she could tell him, that guy will be evil one day. Okay, sure. So I don't know. It didn't really do much for me. I mean, overall, I thought it was pretty similar, the performances. of the two actors because they kind of just do exactly the same thing in both films, like the way they meet the daughter at the pool or at the lake, and then like just immediately butting heads with the daughter, and even the way that the twins take care of her at the end is pretty identical. It's maybe even a little more malicious in the remake, because I'm saying you put somebody on a floaty raft who's been on sleeping pills, they're gonna drown.
Yeah, yeah, it's a possibility.
But overall, it's pretty much the same thing. The only thing I really thought that was different was in the remake, she does give the ultimatum, like, it's either your daughters or me. And so, like, so that's just a little bit cleaner how that relationship ends. So it's like, them. So he was never given that choice in the original. She just kind of stormed off, and then he just said kind of after the fact, well, it's over. So it's just a little bit cleaner how that separates, but I thought the performances were just kind of the same, and the characters overall I felt were similar. Yeah,
I would say that again, kind of like the theory of one character elevating another one. I think that by Dennis Quaid having a line where it's like, I choose my daughters, and even when he punishes them, he's like, remind me to thank them later. Like he recognizes that he was acting a bit silly with his Meredith Blake character, and that his daughters and his ex-wife kind of helped pull him out of that funk. Yeah, no, they pretty much do the same thing. Overall, I will say that the plan in the original, I don't know, I mean, it's the same thing, right? But like, I don't know, like plotting with her mother felt better than plotting with a person we're never going to see again.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, at least we bring her mother in a couple times, and her mother had like such a creepy voice when she's talking to the little girl. It's like, hello, you little cutie. I'm like, ugh. I'm with Sharon on this one. Stay away from her.
Totally. Like I don't know, like the mother in that sense felt more clearly she was on board with like this plot.
Right.
So, they talk about common law property in California and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think that that's an interesting factor, because Meredith Blake is solely acting on her own instinct versus the original fiance, who's kind of, she's bad, but also like her mother's on board. So that takes that Vicki Robinson, that takes her responsibility. Like, of course she's responsible for her actions, but her upbringing is not great. So ultimately, we just have two different, to your point, two different approaches to the same conclusion, really. So, not much to say about the fiance. It's really,
not really. The only thing worth noting, I know we kind of brought her up, but like the mom in the remake is portrayed by the original Vicky. So that's just worth noting.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Where the hell are the names here?
Yeah, Joanna Barnes and Vicki Blake.
Yeah, so Joanna Barnes just reprises her role as Vicky. Her name is Vicky in the remake too. It's like, hey, I'm you can call me Auntie Vicky. So that was cool to see her, but she only has like one scene. Yeah. And then like the guy who plays her husband isn't anybody. I thought he was another actor from the original, but he's not.
Right.
He's just kind of a random. So that's noteworthy. The ultimatum is noteworthy, but other than that, at the end of the day, it's pretty much the same character. It has the same arc and goes through the same kind of trial or whatever the twins ordeal that the twins put her through. So.
Right. I will say that because you brought up the parents, that kind of honorable mention character here, Linda Watkins plays Edna Robinson, who's Vicky's mother in the original. She gets a decent amount of screen time. She gets play off her really well. And I felt like you mentioned, that creepy voice. And, her whole vibe was off, and there's some great moments where Maureen O'Hara throws shade. Was like, oh, he's so nice to meet you. And she's talking to Edna because Edna seems more age appropriate. It's like there's a lot of fun that happens there. But ultimately, you got this gold digger fiance who has plans to marry the father for his money that are thwarted by these twins and their mother to various degrees, and they basically do it the exact same way.
I'd say it might even be worse than the original, because that mother-in-law is going to leech off him too.
Yeah.
You don't know if that's necessarily true in the remake.
Yeah, I think the remake parents are pretty neutral. Like they just, like you mentioned, they're there for the cameo, and then after that, like I didn't read those characters as bad guys. I just read them as hey, we're the parents.
Yeah. Especially since it was the actress from the original. It's just like, oh yeah, and your name's Vicky here too. That's so fun. I'm having fun now.
Yeah. But you know, and yeah, I think that you really couldn't. Yeah, you really couldn't like give that to either one of the actresses. Like I said, I tend to be slightly in the Meredith Blake camp, but I think that again, it's sort of my familiarity with the film. Familiarity with her just playing that role that's leading that out. But I think there's some really solid scenes with the original actress at that golf course. I think there's some strong moments there. So yeah, I mean, kind of a push.
Yeah, she has a great scene with one of the girls. I don't know which twin it was in the original film though, but she goes like, are you suggesting that I'm only after your father for his money? And then the girl just goes, if the shoe fits, just throws that sass, that exact same sass that her mom kind of just throws at her. So I don't know, I like the digs at Vicky in the original more.
Yeah. Kind of going into this, I was thinking, oh, look at all these characters. He's got a vineyard, so that's why he has money. She's a publicist. She makes gowns. I'm like, oh, these things matter. And then I'm like, talking about it, I was like, no, they don't. They don't
know. All these small changes that really don't affect the overall plot at all. Like, we're going to do poker a lot. No,
who cares? No, they hit these beats. I would say one of the major differences, though, since we've gotten past kind of like the fiance here, is the remake does use the sort of the housekeepers, the butlers in a way that are more entertaining, I'll say, than the original film. So, in the original film, the kind of the ranch hand and the nanny type character both come like from the father's side of the equation, and that would be Crahan Denton as Hecky, the ranch foreman, and Una Merkel as Verbena, the housekeeper.
To bring this kid back for, I thought we got rid of her.
Oh, she was hanging around the airport. I thought I might as well get her out of there.
Uh-huh. How was camp?
Oh, swell. Oh, for heaven's sake, it's about time. We've been waiting for you all day. Hi, Verbena. Never mind that hi, Toby. Just give me a hug.
Which are kind of replaced by, in the remake, Lisa Ann Walter plays Chessie. Okay.
You got something you want to share with the class there, Hal?
Jesse, you gave me a fright.
I gave you a fright?
Who's Nick Parker's housekeeper in the original film and Haley's nanny. And in the remake, and also the butler, I guess, would be Simon Kuntz's Martin, who is more on the English side of that equation.
James' residence? Annie?
Yes, Martin?
Dear, it sounds just like you on the phone. I'm sorry, to whom did you wish to speak?
Martin is kind of his own thing, so we'll come back around to that. I would say that that comparison would really bring it to Una Merkel as Verbena, the housekeeper, and Lisa Ann Walter as Chessie, the housekeeper and nanny character in the remake.
Now, Una Merkel as Verbena, I enjoyed her performance so much. She had this great thing where she's like, it's none of my business, and I'm not going to say anything. I'm not saying. But just that Vicky, like she always said that, and it was just every time she said it, like it's the same joke over and over again. But I found myself laughing every time she did it.
It was a good bit.
It was a good bit, and she delivered it like so flawlessly. And then she would say it to the kids, and then she would even say it to the dad, and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, you don't say anything." It was such a funny beat that she had, and I enjoyed it every time. They play with it a little bit with Lisa Ann Walter, but she doesn't really do it as much as it was done in the original.
No. I think that, again, the original, because I think the original is written for these characters, I think that when she delivers that line, it feels better. Right. Because we've established this sort of housekeeper that can't keep anything to herself. Right? Like, it's hilarious because she's saying she's not talking about it, but the first thing she's going to do is talk about it. And we even see at one point when the kids takes on that scene.
Yeah, that was really charming.
In the pool scene, yeah,
that was great.
It was like, I'm not saying he dates a lot of women.
But you know me, I don't talk about people like that.
It's a great running bit. Really builds out that character. It makes Verbena a very fun character in this film. Yeah, Lisa Ann Walter in the remake, she doesn't play the humor, at least not at that level, the same. I think that where she shines is her reaction to like realizing that the kids had swapped.
Right.
Like you get this very emotional scene. Mm-hmm. It's like I haven't seen her in so long, and she's crying like Dennis Quaid's like, why are you looking at her like that? It's like,
right. It's heartwarming and it's played to comedic effect at the same time, which is hard to pull off.
Yes.
But I think it worked in that scene. I
found Chessie to be a lot of fun. But the thing about it is Chessie's a lot of fun because Martin's in the movie.
Right, exactly.
Like Simon Coon's Martin is a funny character because he's very unassuming. Like he's, the butler guy. He's not like a heartthrob type character, but like I don't know, he's got this edge to him, and when he's around Chessie, they have a real romantic connection that plays out through the movie in a fun, like clean way. I really enjoy that sort of side story, that B or C plot that they have going. But Verbena by herself is
she's just a force of nature. Martin has also like a great kind of thing with the kid. He's got the handshake. You see the handshake in the beginning when he drops her off at camp. Yes. You're like, oh, what's going on here? Whatever. But then like you realize that the twin is going to have to do the exact same handshake when she sees him at the airport, and it's just fun to bring that back. And that was a little fun moment to see again. It's
a highlight of the film. There's a scene early on, and they do it again in the movie where they play the Soulful Strut. I forget the artist, but they have a secret handshake. Martin and Haley or Annie, it doesn't matter.
One of them. That's why I keep just saying the twins, the girls.
Which I kind of learned that handshake for some comedy show I did.
Oh wow!
It's goofy. The hands go over, and then you up top, then they switch places, and then you do this. It's a whole stupid thing that I learned a lot of that choreography. Fun though. I mean, like this Martin character in the remake. Again, I think where characters work well is when they defy expectations. Maureen O'Hara's character defies expectations. I'm a socialite from Boston. I'm such a nice lady. In the next scene, I'm punching you. Martin is like, I'm the butler, but he's got secret handshakes. He's a heartthrob, apparently, when it comes to Chessie. So, like, it's just really fun to see that interaction. And his character is a great, great addition to the movie. Because his counterpart would be effectively, would effectively be Crahan Denton's Hecky in the original film. Like Hecky, he doesn't have a relationship with anyone. I would say his funniest scene is when they put him in the goofy like gypsy setup at the Italian restaurant. But like, other than that,
yeah, there's not much to his character. He's just there for support. He's on the girl's side, but doesn't really have too many funny moments. He's kind of has one charming moment, I guess, when one of the girls comes home. He's like, "Hey, I thought you left her for good. What did you bring her back for?" It's a little fun, playful moment he has with the kid. But other than that, he's just really a background player.
Yeah,
doesn't have an arc or anything.
Yeah, I would say that Chessie and Martin individually are already kind of fun characters. They, for what they're tasked to do, I think they pull it off really well. And then because they're fun characters, when they have a connection, it's like, oh yeah, I want to see these two kind of hook up for some reason. And in the original, the farmhands, because they're from the same place, they already know each other. There isn't that like, oh, I'm just meeting you, we're having this romantic relationship. Really, honestly, Hecky isn't very funny at all in the original, and Verbena is actually quite funny.
Right.
So,
and they're not going to get together because there's a huge age difference between those two characters, as opposed to Martin and Chessie, and they're pretty much the same age and roughly. I just thought it was a little bit weird though, because Chessie, like she's pretty much the same age as the dad.
Yeah.
It's like, are they gonna? Why don't they?
Oh
just
no,
get
it's a
together?
question, right? Like,
Yeah, it's like I don't understand. Like I wasn't even sure that she like what her job was. Like is she the maid or housekeeper? I didn't really know what she was doing there because she was so young.
Why would you need her? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why would you need her there? I think that it's one of those things where like you gotta hit the checklist. It's like there was a maid in this movie. We gotta put a maid in this movie. But I think that they utilized her really well in this remake. But to your point,
I got a solution right here. Just make her the sister of the dad. Bam.
Clean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That explains why she's living there and why they're not together.
No questions. Yeah. No. Yeah. If you make her the sister, that's a lot cleaner. There's no question about their romantic interest. They're family, and it makes sense why she's there.
Yeah.
His sister, which would even elevate her, who spent her time helping him after his divorce. I mean, yeah. Well, yeah, you wrote a better movie. Yeah. You wrote a better movie, but it's not her job.
But to your point, Chessie and Martin, the two of them, they get a lot more screen time and just a lot more to do than Vabina and Hecky. And I think that's because they replace the grandparents' role of the original film. That's why we get more screen time with them, because the grandparents are barely in the remake at all, if they were there.
If there were two grandparents in the remake, I'm sorry, because I only remember one, which would have been Ronnie Stevens playing the grandfather, and I think he's only there for the tobacco, smoke, and peppermint line.
And he's outside the phone booth when she makes a phone call. That's about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's pretty forgettable. And they don't have much bigger roles in the original film, but they were memorable roles, so they're definitely worth bringing up. So we have Charlie Ruggles as Charlie McKendrick and Kathleen Nesbitt as Louise McKendrick. And like I said, very small roles. You kind of hear about the grandmother before you see her because she's got the short hair, and everybody's reaction's like, your grandmother's not going to like that. Your grandmother's not going to like that. Right. And then the grandmother, she has a little bit of an issue with it, but overall she's able to come around and be fine with the haircut. But she's very dismissive of the grandfather.
Yes.
Everything, he's just being silly, or you're just rambling.
Go read your newspaper.
Yeah. So she completely ignores him and all his input. He even says I know that my input's probably going to be ignored, but this is what I think about the situation. Right. But he has a great moment. I mean, he has a couple of actually pretty good moments. He's the first one to realize that who the granddaughter really is. Yeah. And he also has this great moment once the granddaughter reveals herself that he gets the grandmother. He's like, come with me. She's like, what? Just give them a minute alone together. Yep. She's like, what? That's my granddaughter. I have the right. He's like, look, I'm putting my foot down right now, okay? I know you dismiss me and all the time, but right now it's their moment, and we're gonna stay out here whether you like it or not. And I was like,
that was
a great,
very strong scene.
Yeah.
When he says basically he's finally putting his foot down.
Yeah.
And I think that it's one of those sort of scenarios that we've invented that does it really go anywhere? Does it really matter that the grandmother is so aggressive? Not really, but if you're going to have the grandparents so heavily featured, it's good to have that dynamic. Mm-hmm. I felt that Kathleen Nesbitt was really interesting in the moments where she wasn't in the film because she had such a dominating personality. People kind of snapped to attention when she was in the room, so that was fun. And having that back and forth with the grandfather, that was a huge payoff to your point. Yeah. Having him finally step up for himself felt good. But I think that the remake adeptly switched focus from the grandparents, who they're there, but I think it takes away from the mother-daughter relationship to have so much of that grandparent influence, and I think that's why that scene hit so hard in the original when Charlie Ruggles is like, I'm putting my foot down, we're staying out of this. And at that point, they're kind of, for the most part, out of the movie at that point.
Well, he has one more scene where he suggests that maybe you want to not wear your old-timey clothes. Maybe you want to dress a little more modern.
That was a good scene for him.
That was good. And I don't know if you noticed, but he's smoking in that scene. He just ashes into his hand and then just kind of drops it on the floor.
That's really cool. Yeah, I do like that assist of like, you're gonna wear that?
Mm-hmm.
You want to try something else?
Yeah, and then he comes out of the room after like talking to her about getting a new wardrobe, and then there's the girl in the hallway, and then he's on her side. It's part of the plan.
Yeah, but to show that the shift that they do in the film, that's basically what Martin does in the remake. Martin's like, you put on this little number and you have him eating out of your palm, basically. So I generally like the shift from the grandparents because there's ultimately nowhere to go with them, right? Like, yes, it's important that they have grandparents, but their relationship is established, done. Like, okay, we could mess with that tension, but it takes away from our main goal here is to parent trap. Mm-hmm. And having the grandparents there, and now we have to deal with their relationship, which is done well in the original, but the remake making the housekeepers, as it were, or the nannies and butlers more important, actually plays well because we have this B love arc that we can get behind because you've established these two characters that are a lot of fun. And in the ending, when you're watching like photos of those two interacting, you're like, all right, Chessie and Martin. I don't know. I think it worked really well. The grandparents were fine, and I thought that they actually brought a lot to the table. To your point, with the dress and just the grandmother's overall demeanor. I think it's also like a '60s thing, right? Like you got this woman who's divorced. What's she doing with herself? I think the family element was important, but I just like what the remake did. I think that shift in focus was good.
I was okay with the shift. I really liked the grandparents in the original, and I do like Martin and Chessie, but I thought like once they were kind of playing that love story with them, they got a little bit boring because they weren't as fun anymore because they were just focused on the romance. They were kind of stringing it out, and we're like, we know it's going to happen. Just go for it. I don't know. So I thought they lost something a little bit. I mean, you wanted it to happen, but it just...
You know, like the tight hallway where they go...
Yeah, I thought that was like... It's like, oh, come on. You two already, like... Probably already banged, like, in the hotel. It's like, we don't need to have this awkward scene on the boat, too.
I'll serve you ladle. You don't want a ladle?
That's what so I was like, I'm okay with this. Like, I wanted to see Martin do a little bit more with his leather coat and just to see him be a badass.
That was fun. I don't know. I think it all comes down to preference. It's like, would you rather see this familial aspect that the original has? And I think that the grandparents played, to your point, they played really well in that film. The grandmother's not very likable, though, I think. And I think that's where my preference comes into play here is that she just kind of sucks. Which is cool because we get this great turn from the grandfather. Like, it's kind of worth that turn. But if you're going to give me two characters I kind of like, and I do get your point, by the midway point they serve their purpose, ultimately. But at the same time, like, I would argue that the grandparents don't serve that much of a purpose in the original. Like, they do things that move the plot along, but you could get there without them, is kind of where I fall.
Yeah, I guess I could see that. But you could also kind of argue...
Oh, you can. I am Team Chessie and Team Martin.
I'm going to be Team Grandparents then.
Nice.
Is that pretty much all the characters that are the same in both films that are important?
Yeah.
I got the counselors here.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty much all the important characters. I have an honorable mention section for... Really, it's for the remake, but in the original... You had Nancy Culp as Mrs. Gruntker, who had that cake fall on her head. You had Frank Duvall as Mr. Eaglewood.
Yeah, the punch.
The punch. And I just thought their names were interesting in the remake. The Marvas. Polly Holliday as Marva Culp Sr., who owned Camp Walden, and Maggie Wheeler, who played Marva Culp Jr., who's her daughter and assistant.
Oh, I didn't know they were mother and daughter.
Yeah, I didn't know that in the film, though. Like, the Marvas, I found them to be kind of funny that one time in the remake. So I wanted to give them a...
Oh, okay. That one, the junior, isn't she from Friends? She was the Chandler's... Oh, Chandler. Isn't that the same actress?
I think it is, actually. I think it is.
There's like the nanny kind of a thing going on there. Yeah, they were okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think all the camp counselors were kind of just like,
Yeah.
it's okay. I will say, like, it is funny in when the twins are revealed, or that people keep thinking they're twins in both films. Like after they get in trouble in the original, the head camp counselor's like, and even for sisters to do that, they're not sisters. What?
right.
You gotta be kidding me! They look identical. And then the reveal in the remake, like after the sword fight, where like the daughter, the camp counselor, is just like look, and then all the other campers are just looking at them like, "What? How do you two look exactly?" So it is fun to see their camp counselors' reactions to seeing the twins side by side, but they're pretty much just secondary.
Yeah, completely secondary, and that's why they're in the honorable mention category. Characters that you don't really care about, but I just thought the name Marva. I was like, why Marva? So there they are.
Fair enough. Here's a character I really want to talk about
Okay.
from the original film who is not in the remake, and that is Leo G. Carroll as Reverend Dr. Mosby.
Dr. Mosby.
Dr. Mosby. For me, the highlight of the film is Dr. Mosby character, because he's just there as a spectator, just watching everything happen, and he's having a ball. And I'm just enjoying himself.
Yeah.
Like, he has a great little introduction to, like, he's like, he's getting drinks for everybody, the dad. So he's like, Father, I don't suppose you indulge. He's like, well, maybe, since we're celebrating the nuptials. And he's like, bourbon. Double on the rocks. Very particular drink. The guy's like, okay, Father, okay.
Yeah.
So like you think, okay, he's a little bit funny. But then later when he meets the mom, he's like in love with her. He's like, what a delightful woman. You are so charming. He's just in
like,
love.
how'd you let this one slip out of your hands?
He's just so in love with the ex-wife, and it's so funny.
So fun.
And then he's just watching the whole thing go down, and then they're constantly going, Reverend, do you want to maybe like go outside? Oh no, this is so out of the ordinary. I'm having a good time just watching. He's just got this smile on him the whole time. He's such a fun, delightful character.
It's so good because like they don't want to, like they want to follow this. He's a person of respect. He's a reverend. We don't want to, show bad face, and he's just having so much fun with him. It's like, oh, go ahead. What? This chick? Nice, dude. Bourbon.
There's just so many shots of them just looking at him and then just raising his glass like, oh, this is fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for inviting me.
He's a very fun character. There's no equivalent in the remake to him, but like, man, those are great scenes.
Yeah.
Like, he's an awesome
Yeah, it doesn't affect the story at all, but just that he's such a good comic
relief.
relief. Yeah, you didn't just need that because like everything's starting to come to a head. Like the mom and dad are getting together for the first time after all these years, and the realizing, or he's realizing, at least the dad, that oh my god, both of them are together, the twins. So it's like all this emotional stuff, all this heavy stuff that mom and dad are fighting, or the exes are fighting, and then he's just there, just enjoying the ride, and it's. What a perfect character for that. It's so good.
Perfect character. I wish we could do more of him, but because there's no juxtaposition, whatever, but like, gotta bring him up because he's a lot of fun in that film, man.
I didn't think I'd like him at all, but I'm just having a good time just watching everything. I love him, man.
Yeah, and I think that's where the original film is very strong. It's characters that aren't supposed to act a certain way that are in on the bit, Like Maureen O'Hara is the greatest example of like, yes, I'm a matronly woman, just, a person of respect, but she just cuts so deep, man.
Yeah.
And I think the Dr. Mosby character, same thing. It was like, hey man, I'm having fun. So, I don't care that you're embarrassed about this. This is great. There's nothing on TV today.
He's great too. Like even after he leaves, he's with the fiance and her mom, and he's just in the car. And he's like, "What a delightful woman! Can you believe he actually let her slip away?" And then they're like, "Whose side are you on, asshole? You're supposed to be marrying me, not fucking her." So it's so great. He's so fun.
Fun character. I mean, that's ultimately the characters that matter in these films. I'll say this, that in the original, I think there are times where the music doesn't work, but I I felt like the opening intro song was really well done, in that
kind of claymation, stop motion thing going on.
Yeah. A lot of older films and television do a really good job with their intros. Like you ever watch like if you ever watch like I Dream of Jeannie, and like that intro feels a lot like that. So I thought that was fun. I thought the song was way better than I was expecting it to be. There's a song they do after that, like at the camp, that sucks. And then there's the like rock song they do as a family that I thought was fun. So I found the music to be time appropriate. Like it was the 60s.
Well, it's in the early 60s. Like the Beatles aren't even a thing yet.
Yeah.
So it's like rock and roll hasn't really progressed as much as it will. But yeah, that "Let's Get Together" is ridiculously catchy, and I was just humming it like all week. I'm like Lindsay Lohan in the remake, just going "Let's get together." Yeah. So it's not in the remake, but at least she hums it, so you get a little bit of it. Yeah, I didn't expect Lindsay Lohan to be singing, because that would come across as really cheesy.
That would be
remake. So it was a good cut, but it was an enjoyable scene in the original film.
Yeah. I thought that when they did music, that there's one time where I thought it was a little much. I think it was like at the dance, actually. But
it's the same song, actually.
Oh, well, then I can go fuck myself.
It's the "Let's Get Together." Because I rewatched it and I was like, oh, so that's maybe why the girls are singing it.
Okay.
Because they heard it at the dance.
Well, I'm wrong. I like all the music.
Well, maybe because it is a different version, obviously, that's being played, so maybe you just prefer the way they did it.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for the save. That's the life raft. That like 60s swing music fit this movie. I wouldn't recommend it for every movie, but I felt like it actually helped elevate the film in certain ways. And the remake, that soulful strut, I think is one of the highlights. I think anyone that watches this remake knows about the secret handshake, that soulful strut song that comes on, and it works really well. Other than that, I can't remember too much of the music.
Yeah, I remember when she goes to London, they play that "There She Goes." Which I remember from So I Married an Axe Murderer. Just played in that movie a billion times. I did look up the soundtrack. I wasn't sure what song what's the fiance in the remake?
Meredith Blake.
Meredith. She's listening to an old hip hop song when she drives up to the house. It was actually Fresh Prince's. Just Don't Understand. So it was like a few seconds of it, and I was like, "What song is that she's listening to? It sounds so familiar." And I was like, "Oh man, she's listening to some Fresh Prince and DJ Jazzy Jeff." Man, it was.
I did enjoy that. I immediately picked up on it. I was like, "Okay, nice."
So she's not such a horrible person. She's got a good taste in music.
She just likes money. I mean, who doesn't?
A lot more pop songs, definitely. I think the opening, instead of the song that was in the opening in the original, it's like Nat King Cole's "Love." It's a L. I can't sing it. I don't know the exact.
L, the way you look at me.
There you go.
Who knows what that is?
So it's the soundtrack's more recognizable for sure than the remake. Some songs I like. Just rolled my eyes, like "Bad to the Bone" over the poker game. So we're doing this song again. Like "Bad to the Bone" peaked in Married with Children whenever Al Bundy had to destroy a bathroom or something.
It's from like Geico garbage commercial now that uses that. It's
I mean it was in Terminator 2. It's been in like so many other things. So just hearing "Bad to the Bone" again, it's
it's a tough baby, real tough baby. But like you mentioned, the pop music really comes out. But I'll give the Sherman Brothers their due. I will say that those songs kind of hold up, man.
Yeah.
Like you said, they're catchy. They're definitely period.
Yes.
They're dated, but they still kind of they can get you moving. They can get you moving. And I thought that the way the song played, to your point, the claymation, everything like that, in the opening, I thought that was probably one of the strongest openings that I've seen in a film when you're doing that music thing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend it for everybody, but like it works really well for this movie. Yeah. So.
Also, closing claymation too in the films. The end on the Cupid butts. Just had to bring that up because I was watching that with Sam. She's like, "That was a weird way to put the end right on the asses."
Hey man,
And that's what they did in the 60s in Disney.
That's how we get down. So, yeah, I mean, 2 movies that are telling...
The endings are slightly different. I don't know if we wanted to get to that, too.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. All right, so we'll just start with the original. After Vicky has stormed off, the mom's just there in the kitchen, just like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear about that. And then even the twins, they don't have this moment, I don't think, in the remake. They actually come down and they say, you know what, Dad, we're sorry. We kind of sabotaged your relationship. It's not really our place to do that, but we did it. And so it's just, okay, at least they apologized. They did treat Vicky pretty horribly.
Pretty bad.
And, the dad's like, what's done is done. There's nothing you can do about it. So then he's just like, kind of like tired from camping. And then, like you kind of mentioned this earlier, the mom just like going through the dishes or the pantry trying to make dinner. And then he's just looking at her and starts thinking, maybe this will work. So then he's like, I'm gonna go wash my hands upstairs, and ends up like taking a shower, getting nicely dressed. The twins are like, where are you going? He's like, none of your business. And then he opens the door and he goes, I'm gonna bang your mom again.
100%.
That didn't happen. Director's cut, maybe. But yeah, he goes downstairs, and then they just, they start talking again, and then, he kind of apologizes to, like, the way he said things to her, like, because she complimented him for how good he looked during the dinner, and then he didn't. He was kind of like, I guess you look good too. And then she's like, you're just a horrible person. You don't know how to say anything nice to anybody. Which is back to our point. Like that guy just has like no charm.
He's got no
charisma. But he apologizes, and then he talks about the things he misses, and the things that he misses are kind of the things that would like start arguments, like when you would make my razors dull when you shave your legs, and when you leave up your pantyhose in the bathroom, and it's like, I just miss it, and I miss us, and then like let's get together. And they pretty much do get together, and then it cuts to the twins. One of them wakes up. I just had the most peculiar dream. It's us wearing these weird colored dresses, and we're just walking down an aisle. And then it cuts to like what she's describing, and then you actually see them getting married.
Yeah, at the wedding. And
to the end, and that's how the original ends.
Yeah, I think that stuff works, right? Like I think that a lot of times in film and novels and stuff like that, like we focus on the aspects of love and marriage that are like ideal. But I think that like what they like about each other is these nuances and these quirks and stuff like that that other people may not like about them.
Yeah. He liked the domestic violence too. He's like, you want to hit me?
Yeah,
pop me in the eye?
Anytime.
I'm into that.
This guy likes getting hit. That's how it goes down in that ranch. Jesus. Yeah, but like I thought that was clean. Like you look at this guy who spent 14 years kind of chasing around other women, trying to different things out. And I think it's such a good scene when Maureen O'Hara's wearing like the housewife dress. She's like she's in the cupboard looking for things. She looks like the mother of the house. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, I missed out on this for so long. And it plays super, super well. I really like that dynamic. It made that whole storyline just button up really well. And yeah, I mean, it's not always about like the bells and whistles, you know, the child bride and the electric hips. It's not necessarily what's going to raise your family. I mean, again, like this dad has like an outdoorsman type interest. He likes to go camping. He owns a ranch. So for this fiance to be like, I don't like this, it doesn't work. Right. But Maureen O'Hara, she's down. So yeah, clean ending. I really thought that ending was super strong and helped pull this whole thing together.
Yeah, it's it's really subtle, like that small moment of realization when he's watching her going through that cover. I really like that. It doesn't like they don't rub your face in it. Like, look, this is how they're gonna get together. It's just like this kind of this is nice. I like this. I miss this. Yeah. And I want to keep doing this. Let's get together.
Yeah. Yeah, none of them can play instruments.
As somebody who plays guitar, just seeing her left hand not move at all during those chord progressions.
Yeah.
And then just never showing her play piano. Also, I just gotta say, she's playing like when she first like goes back home, she's playing some type of Chopin piece. I'm working on that Chopin piece, and just to hear her kick my ass at it, you're like, oh, dang it.
Well, when he's like, how'd you learn how to play piano? It's like, dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, go some chopsticks.
It's like, all right.
It was a funny little joke.
Yeah. I think that, the opening of the film and the ending of this film are probably two of the stronger moments in the film. But I do really, really like that ending. Yeah. So glad you brought that up. A remake. You might have to jog my memory a little bit here.
Okay.
I know that they basically prank Vicky to the point where she does get that ultimatum, which is the mirror you thing.
Or mirror them.
Yes. Yeah. So Vicky does ultimately give that ultimatum that's it's me or the girls, and Dennis Quaid's like, no question, didn't even pause. The girls. You know, I like I mentioned earlier, but I really do like that he recognizes that they kind of did him a solid in this moment.
Right.
So that recognition is a difference, but one that I really enjoy in the remake, which him and Liz just saying, that was crazy. I got to punish him for like forever, but one day I'll thank them for this. I found that to be really clean, and from that point, if you want to take over, I'm trying to remember.
I was trying to remember too.
Oh shit!
All right, so so he gets back home, and they're gonna have dinner.
Yeah,
the two of them. And she's gonna make some pasta, and then I think that's when he's like, "Oh, let's go get some wine for that pasta." So he's like, not only do I make wine, because I collect wine as well. So he's like showing her all these different bottles of wine, and a lot of it doesn't really matter until he gets to this bottle of wine, and then she can't recognize it, and he's like, "Well, that's the bottle of wine from our wedding. What the hell? You can't recognize it?" No, he doesn't say that, but yeah, he shows her the bottle of wine from the wedding. She's like, "Wow, you actually found it?" He's like, "Yeah, I actually found as many as I could. I got them all."
Wow.
So he's been collecting these bottles of wine all these years. Like I said, it's like, yeah, wow, that's really cute and charming. Why did he leave this woman, or why did they never get together? So that's a little issue. But anyway, so they're having all these memories come back, and then they're just talking about them and like why they split up in their future, and it looks like they're about to kiss. And then Chessie, yeah, her car pulls in. She kind of ruins the moment, but she's like, I don't care. We can still keep doing this, right? This is cool. And then the mom, Liz, is just like, no. She kind of pulls away. They do not kiss. She's like, I'm going on my flight. My flight is tomorrow, and I am going on my flight tomorrow. So that's it. And then she leaves. You actually see the plane landing in England, and you think, oh, okay, they actually left. And then when she opens up a room, the one daughter she didn't take with her is in that room already. Apparently, they took what kind of plane was it? Like a Concorde? Oh,
yeah, they took
they took the Concorde, and then she says, we took the Concorde. We realized after 5 minutes we wanted you on our lives. It was better that way. She's like, we? Who's we? And then that's where Dennis Quaid comes in with his charming smile. Yep. And then he's like, and they had mentioned this before, like, she had left on that plane for London and he never followed her. He's like, well, I did it this time. I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. And then she kind of brings up a good point. What, so you followed me? So it's supposed to just make everything good and we're just supposed to be together? And he's like, yeah. And then she's like, okay. Yeah. So then they finally kiss, and then we cut to kind of the credits, and that's when we see like a lot of the wedding photos and everything. I'm pretty sure that's how it ends.
That's pretty much it, yeah. They go back on the Queen Elizabeth II.
Yeah.
And they kind of redo their wedding. Bree made a good point about Concorde. They discontinued those flights because they were super dangerous. So I'm glad that they made it.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah, they were fast.
Yeah.
You get there pretty quick. Too quick sometimes. But and I would say that when you're looking at the two endings, that original ending is squarely sort of focused on the parents and ultimately the kids because of the wedding and stuff like that. But like it's focused on them. This remake, they fly the plane. It's all cute and fun. But then you're looking at this Queen Elizabeth II footage in the credits, which is a little weak.
Yeah.
And there's like photos of Chessie and Martin and stuff like that. It's just like I get it. Like, these are characters we like, and me, obviously, more so than you. But, no, I think the original just, was just more succinct and clean, you know?
Yeah.
Like, we flew, you flew,
It was more believable, more plausible.
Yeah, well, for sure that. For sure that. So, I don't know, again, ultimately, the same sort of conclusion, like, they get back together.
Right.
But I do love the attention to kind of detail in the original of the father seeing the wife and being like, all right, this could work. Seeing their wedding actually played out, not photos of it.
Right.
I think that's pretty strong.
And the priest showed back up.
Yeah.
I got my favorite character back at the end. I'm happy.
You're a priest guy. I'm a Jesse guy. You know? Go figure. Yeah, no, but like either way you cut it, the movies did the same thing.
Right.
They did the same thing. Just I think it would come down to preference of different characters and things like that. In terms of what you would prefer to see. But yeah, I think both films handled their respective plots really well.
Yeah.
All right.
Anything else you want to talk about? I mean, like, these are very similar films, so there's not really much. They might have tweaked a thing here or there. I guess just a couple things like I wanted to mention, like some of the kids at the the camp I thought were pretty funny in the original. Like you said, there's a dance, so she's talking to some boy. I think his name is Stafford, and I think the hotel in the remake is named after him for some reason. Yeah, so that's just a little trivia there for you. But it's just cute, the interaction he has. Like, he just coughing, constantly clearing his throat, and then just his response is just, that's great.
Yeah.
You know, just the way young preteens interact with each other, just not knowing what to say or how to talk. That's great. I just thought he was really fun.
It was fun to play off of Stafford too, because when the twins gets back to Boston, I was going to say England, but Boston, and she's like, her mother's going to go hang out with the Red Cross or something like that. She's like, oh, I gotta get this alone time. She's like, when did you get married?
Yeah,
like,
what's an appropriate age?
Yeah. It was like, all right, cancel everything. My kids trying to get with Stafford. I got to handle this. Yeah, Stafford was fun. I did kind of like that they got to interact with boys at their camp. Yeah, not a major moment, but you know, something a little bit different.
Yeah, and then there's just another girl, like at the very end of camp when they're leaving, and there's this girl with a skunk in the cage.
Yeah, what was that about?
Nothing. It was about nothing, but it was like this girl just crying because she can't take the skunk home because her parents won't let her.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was so funny. She's like, "Oh, I just want to take the skunk home. You won't let me down." I'm so
I've
sorry.
never seen someone have a skunk in a cage.
Yeah.
Like it was an odd scene, but yeah, that was funny.
Yeah,
I found it to be
just a funny beat.
Super fun beat.
And in the original, I don't know if you picked up on this, there was a boy in the girls' camp. Did you see that boy character?
Nah, I didn't really pick up.
Yeah, I only know it because I wasn't sure. Like, I thought it was a boy watching. He's the character. He goes, I thought this was a boys' camp.
Okay.
And then, like, he's, like, in a couple other scenes in the beginning. That's actually Lindsay Lohan's brother.
Really?
Yeah. I only know that because I looked up all this stuff on, like, IMDb. But I just thought I'd throw that out. There's a boy
in the remake.
In the remake.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't.
Yeah,
nah.
he's so, like, in the background.
Yeah.
You can barely hear his lines.
Yeah.
The camera's never really focused just on him. So he could be just a little girl with a short haircut. So I wasn't sure.
I didn't pick up on that. I just found that there were so many other, like, more interesting characters in that camp. But yeah, wow. All right. Lohan's brother got a credit. That's cool.
All right.
Well, I guess that brings us to the grand finale, I guess. Dan, should this remake exist?
Okay. So I had a lot of trouble with this verdict. I was going back and forth as I was watching the remake because the remake has some really solid performances. I mean, Lindsay Lohan's first movie, it's a star-making role for her, and she's just really great in it. She really sells the movie incredibly well. Like I said, Dennis Quaid is fantastic as the father. Really enjoyed him. The other characters are okay too. Like, I didn't hate Chesney and Martin. You know, I enjoyed them at times, but it wasn't like heavily invested in the relationship, I guess. But the problem is, it just follows the original script so close. And, you know, this retro versus remake, my whole thing is, did you do anything to, you know, justify being made? What did you bring other than just solid performances? And I really struggled coming up with an answer. Like, what did I enjoy more that the remake did that they didn't really do in the original? And again, I struggled. A lot of my notes that I took while I was watching the movie was just like the original. That was my note. I did that note more and more, and I wanted to like this remake so much.
Right.
And I wanted it to kind of find its own voice and just do something different. Like maybe have the mom be the one that they have to break up, her marrying somebody. Just anything. Give me something to just justify being made. And the longer the movie went, the more it just kept doing stuff from the original, and the more it just wasn't able to kind of meet what I needed it to do.
Sure.
So while I really enjoyed the performances, and I think it's a solid movie if on its own, if there was no original, I just don't think there was enough to actually justify it being made. So this was really hard, but I'm just going to say no, because I don't think they did enough to distinguish itself from the original.
That's fair. I think that my experience is different than yours. So I saw the remake before I saw the original. I didn't even know the original existed. So even in the sequence of watching this, I watched the remake first and then the original, which I think, again, could probably flavor my take on this. You're right. I mean, they hit pretty much the exact same beats. There's not really much different to it. Why do this again in that regard? I'm glad that I got to watch the original to a certain extent. I think what the remake does a little bit better is pacing. I think the pacing's slightly better because they're trying to hit more obvious comedic beats in the remake, so that helps a little bit. Yeah, like Lindsay Lohan's star power, Quaid's star power, all that. I think they really help this movie get off the ground. So by that sense, I do get what you're saying. I get that. Like, there's no functional reason why this movie should exist. I think it's too important to the culture. You know, like there's a lot of people that just like this remake. There are a lot of elements that I like about this remake. Boy, now it's tough for me, actually, because I think the original handles the parent relationship better overall. Yeah, just to watch a funnier version of this movie, I think that the remake should exist. I think it just handles the same beats quicker and more modernized, so like I'll give them that. But you're right. I mean, it's not very different. I just think that you'll save a couple minutes and basically get the same thing watching the remake. So I'm wouldn't normally do this, but I'm giving that the bump here that I think they just edit better in places. So the movie should exist. But yeah, I mean that's pretty close actually, because like they don't do a lot different at all. So you could just skip it, but like the original was 2 hours, man.
So does the remake.
Oh wow,
they're the same length.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're both 2 hours and 9 minutes.
Why?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
And there's not even a song in the remake, and it's still just this long.
You got me there. I think my verdict is purely off of Team Chessie, Team Martin all day. Not stopping me. I like them. Keep them in. Remake should exist. That's my verdict.
That's fine. I mean, it's fair enough. Like I said, I went back and forth a lot while I was watching.
That's a tough one, dude.
Like when they got to the hotel, they were doing some things that were different enough. And I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna say this should exist. But then immediately kind of went back into the formula and just followed the plot, like beat for beat. And you know, even just going to the effects, like I said this before, like the effect of the twins in the original is just as good as the effect of the twins in the remake, even though that movie came out almost 40 years later. So it's not like, well, it just looks so bad, the original. I mean, the water
scene.
The water scene. Anytime they use the rear screen projection, it's obvious they did it for the outdoor stuff because they probably had a lot of background noise. So there's one nice, quiet studio. But the effect of the twins just holds up so well. I could not believe it. I'm just like, I rewatched it just to try to see like where did they cut? How did they do this exactly? And it just baffles me. It holds up so well. So it's just like, even with 1998 technology, it's like, well, it wasn't necessary.
And they do their fight without fencing masks. I mean, I mean, like the effects are equivalent, more or less. Yeah, I just think that the only thing that's happening here is star power. That's the only difference. Like, do you like Dennis Quaid? Do you like Lindsay Lohan? If you do, then you'll probably like this movie. Right. But most modern audiences have no idea who these original actors are, and that's really the only thing this remake's bringing to the table.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely is easier on the modern ear to just follow their dialogue. I mean, it's very old. Little children might have a little trouble following what they're saying. They kept calling the dad a ninny. And I was like, what does that exactly mean? I know it's something condescending. It's just a foolish person, a ninny. So, it's very sort of dated, and even just the dialogue, let alone the music, which you already mentioned. So I could see, if you want to show this to a kid today, just showing them the remake, because it'll just be easier for them to digest. Because, I don't know if their attention span would be able to just follow, the long shots that they do have in the original film. So, but like I said, it's so similar, I just can't justify it.
Oh, I hear you. No, I think that you're using a consistent metric or rubric here. I'm flying off the handle. I think that the context of where Lindsay Lohan's career went is playing a factor here for me. I think just knowing how this movie has affected a generation of people is playing off for me. So none of that has to do with the movie. So I think your assessment is pretty fair. I'm going to give them, again, the editing, I think, is what brings it together. And I think that plays into what you're saying for a more modern ear. This adaptation is more accessible. Yeah. So that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah. I was coming here kind of still on the fence. If you had said something or brought up something that would have made me go on oh yeah, that should exist. But even in our discussion, I was just kind of writing the remake didn't do that as well. So it's an enjoyable movie for sure. But I thought the original did it already and didn't need to be done again.
Yeah, I mean, after our discussion, I'm actually thinking of several scenes where the original actually handles it better. Yeah. Especially the ending. I think the ending is much stronger in the original. So, yeah. Well, that happened.
There you go. All right, so that's what we thought about The Parent Trap. How many people did I piss off in my verdict? Let me know in the comments if you're one of the people that Reggie mentioned that movie means something to. Next episode, Reggie.
Next episode,
we kind of were talking about this, and
we talked. I think we've come to the conclusion that we want to do something that's a little more comedic, something that's going to play into this, because we recently did RoboCop and stuff like that. We recently did some sci-fi with The Day the Earth Stood Still, so we want to stay away from that type of movie for now. And I think we're going to go more comedic. Even more comedic than The Parent Trap, and we're going with Mr. Deeds.
Mr. Deeds, Adam Sandler, welcome back to the show.
Yes, sir. Adam Sandler's back. We haven't seen him since The Longest Yard, I think. And Longfellow Deeds will be the star of our next episode.
So watch your Mr. Deeds. All right, well, that does it for today. If you're following us, let me say this. All right, so if you're listening to us on iTunes, if you can give us a 5-star review, that would greatly help the podcast grow. If you're on YouTube, leave a comment. We love seeing those comments. And if you're not subscribed, definitely give us a subscribe.
Awesome. Retro vs. Remake, you can find us at Retro vs. Remake. Instagram, on
Twitter.
Yep. Facebook, all that stuff. Like he mentioned, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, maybe Google Play. Go figure it out. It's a great series. We have a lot of fun with it. We hit that 50 episode milestone, and we got at least 50 more for you. There's a lot of remakes out there, guys.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that Scarface episode.
Scarface, that's gonna be fun. So, I'm Reggie Parker.
And I'm Dan Bulick. And this has been another episode of Retro vs. Remake. Let's get together. Yeah.